Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show today, guys. We got a ton of news. Oh, my goodness. Breaking news is that we are in an all-out trade war with Canada, Mexico, and China right now. It's official. Our reciprocal tariffs are taking effect. The tariffs of 25% are hitting Mexico and Canada, as well as tariffs of 20% are hitting China. So what's happening? They're now saying that, oh, we're going to increase our tariffs on the United States. So Trump responds to Trudeau, calling tariffs very dumb as trade war ramps up. It is very obvious that right now, the United States has been taken advantage by so many countries where the average tariff with other countries towards us was 10% or more. But when it came to our tariffs on other country, it only averaged around 2%. Trump said, we have to do what's fair for everybody. That includes the United States. Even though we are the biggest, we still want to play in a fair game. So we are in an all-out trade war right now with Mexico, with Canada. We will see what happens. There's been governors, or I don't know what you call them, people over in Canada that are canceling United States contracts. I mean, things are really spiraling, but it's a controlled spiral. Trump knows what he's doing. Trump knows that tariffs are the way to make sure that America gets the external revenue service going, and especially when we're the number one superpower, we have all the cards to play. We also have where Zelensky has said that he is finally ready to work with President Donald Trump to negotiate a peace deal with Russia. This comes after many countries in Europe, including Italian Prime Minister Meloni, rejected offers from France and the UK to send troops to Ukraine. So, again, we're seeing everybody's cards. Everybody's taking sides, and we're seeing that Ukraine is not as big as they thought that they were and doesn't have the cards that they thought they could play to try to get everybody's support. All the while, Putin has agreed to help President Trump advance nuclear peace talks with Iran. So, lots of foreign policy stuff going on here, guys. It is going to affect us here in the United States. We do have really good news that Attorney General Pam Bondi says a truckload of documents related to the Jeffrey Epstein case has been received and is under review by the FBI. A truckload, everybody. And the Doge Department has exposed yet another migrant scam, illegal migrant scam. $215 million was paid to, you guessed it, an NGO shelter in Texas that was supposed to be housing illegal migrants, and we were paying $215 million to this NGO to house illegal migrants. They did a check, and all the buildings were empty. They've been empty for years. The NGOs have been taking the money and pocketing it. A lot of corruption and scams, guys. We got so much to go over today. I want to say thank you to all of our viewers and subscribers. If you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. And if you don't mind clicking the thumbs up like button, it really helps out so much with our videos. Thank you for your support. I want to thank everybody that is a member of the channel. And thank you to everybody that gives a super chat donation. I want to thank Elaine Demeen so much for your super chat. Y'all show Elaine some love in the chat. We are not only entering into a trade war, we're going to see how far Canada is willing to go. On top of that, things are really moving across the world, and everybody's picking their sides, guys. And I'm telling you this, Trump knows what he's doing, and it's very evident because of what you're about to see next. Check it out.
So again, the public is not on your side. When I say you, I should be specific because precision matters, okay? If you are the anti-Trump reflexive, Trump's Ukraine plan sucks. What's your plan? Ukraine needs to win. What does winning look like? Hell if I know. That's not a plan. It's a suggestion. It's the four-way stop sign. A lot of people don't stop at the four-way stop sign because they think the other guy will do it. That's what this is. It's a suggestion. You're like, oh, I don't need to produce a plan. Someone else will. There are smart minds in D.C. I guess not, because these smart minds have yet to produce an actual freaking plan. Here's Harry Anton from CNN talking about how Trump is doing way better than President Biden, former President Biden, on the Ukraine issue. The public's not with you either. This is one of those situations where you are picking, again, the wrong hill to die on. Check this out.
I think the easiest way we can kind of just ask this is, do Americans like the way that Trump's handling his job and compare it to how they felt about Joe Biden? So this is the net approval rating. You look at Joe Biden back in 2024, he was 22 points underwater. Holy cow. You look at Donald Trump, it's just a different planet entirely. I mean, the gulf between these two is wider than the Gulf of America or Mexico, depending on which side of the aisle you stand on. He's at +2. So look, at this particular point, Americans are giving Donald Trump the benefit of the doubt. He's doing considerably better than Joe Biden was doing on the handling of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And so on this simple question, I think Americans are saying, okay, Donald Trump's doing all right on this.
This is Jake Tapper and my Congressman Brian Mast. And why is this segment important to me outside of just the content? Because Congressman Brian Mast, who's my congressman in Martin County, Florida, Congressman Brian Mast, I've mentioned his name before because there's something very distinct about Congressman Mast. And it's that he's missing limbs, notably his 2 legs. Why do you think that is? That's because Congressman Mast decided he was going to volunteer for military service, decided to become a bomb tech, obviously one of the most hazardous professions of any profession anywhere in the known cosmos. Well, Congressman Mast was trying to disarm an explosive. It went off, and he lost fingers. There he is right there. And you'll see he has prosthetic legs. So Congressman Mast has bona fides on this issue to discuss what President Zelensky refers to as the nice oceans protecting us. He's kind of crossed those, and he's left pieces of himself over there. So when Congressman Mast speaks, he speaks with instant skin in the game.
Yep.
Actual skin in the game. Here he is with Jake Tapper talking about how the EU, which has skin in the game as well, they're right there. They're kind of de facto funding both sides of this war by constantly buying gas from Russia, which is fattening up their coffers, which is in turn funding Russia's war effort. So how serious are you guys? Let us know, because we're the ones trying to cut that off. Take a look.
It's so ironic. They're still reliant on Russian oil and gas, moving it throughout Europe or moving it to other places and bringing it back into Europe. So they're essentially putting as much money into supporting Russia and not putting as much money into actually defending Ukraine and then begging us to be the backstop for security. That comes to an end.
Yeah, I actually saw a study from a European group that showed that Europeans were actually buying more Russian oil and gas than they were helping Ukraine in terms of the aid. So in some ways, the Europeans are funding both sides in this war.
Germany and others just decommission.
I'm sorry to interrupt, guys, but you can't make that up. Even CNN had to admit, yeah, Europe is kind of talking out of both sides of their mouth. They're buying Russian oil, and then they're supporting Ukraine in their efforts to fight Russia. Like, again, the hypocrisy is at its highest level, guys. And I just want to say thank you so much for your support. If you don't mind hitting the thumbs up like button, thank you so much. And Random Car, thank you so much for the super chat. Y'all show Random Car some love in the chat.
Out of their nuclear power plants, and therefore they have to rely more for baseload power on natural gas from Russia. Yeah. Exactly. Climate's right. The climate change people, they're like, the climate change people are supposed to be the peaceniks. They're like, continue the war. Continue, fund Russia. Decommission the nuclear power. Can you guys just get a message? Can you just figure out what side you're on? I don't understand. I mean, can we just make this like kind of simple? Oh, man. President Trump is not kidding when he's talking about the tariff thing.
Nope.
Tariffs take effect today. Here he was yesterday. He was announcing a $100 billion chip investment. I'll tell you why this is important in relationship to the tariff story. These stories are related. I'll show you why and what the economic logic is. I promise I'm not going to make this boring for you. I know people that dismal science, economics. This will make sense. Play that cut.
Today, Taiwan Semiconductor is announcing that they will be investing at least $100 billion in new capital in the United States over the next short period of time to build state-of-the-art semiconductor manufacturing facilities. I think mostly it's going to be in Arizona, which is what I understand, which is a great state. I like it because I want it. but I won most of them, actually. So, but I did, we won it, and we won it big. The most powerful AI chips in the world will be made right here in America, and it'll be a big percentage of the chips made by his company, but as you know, they're based mostly in Taiwan.
I thought this guy was crazy. If he's crazy, why are all these people investing? It's right.
Mm-hmm.
If he's not,
yeah.
so just to be clear, Haley and I are both Long Island kind of Queens kids, right? Say you've got this guy in your neighborhood. We had this kid growing up. I won't use his real name, but let's call him Tony. This kid was legit crazy, right? He was. Like, if you walked near his house, you crossed the street because you were afraid he'd come out the door. I'm not kidding. I lived on 64th Place. Everybody who lived in that neighborhood knew to stay away from this guy. No one's going to go in there and ask him to start a business. Like, hey, you want to start a corner deli with me? Because he's crazy, right? He was a dangerous kid, right? So if Donald Trump is so crazy, why is this like the fourth or fifth multi-billion-dollar, $100 billion plus deal where people are moving money back into the United States? I'm just asking questions.
I love it, guys.
Incorporate a few
I love it because, again, too, he knows what he's doing. We just got breaking news, guys. Literally just happened a couple minutes ago. So Zelensky said it's time to make things right. Zelensky says he's ready to work with Trump after the Oval Office spat. Well, guess what? Breaking news right here. President Trump and Zelensky plan to sign the Ukrainian mineral deal today, and Trump will announce it during his congressional address tonight, per Reuters. Guys, the art of the deal. We're finally getting our money back. Essentially, what breaks my heart is so many Ukrainians lost their lives, but what also breaks my heart is that the United States was pulled into it in a war that it should have never have started. And it doesn't matter because, again, when you think about how much the left wing is trying to say whatever, guess what? Trump is ending the war. Biden wasn't going to do it. Biden had signed a dumb 10-year deal to give Ukraine United States taxpayer dollars for the next 10 years to fight the war. Trump gets into office less than 2 months in, and he's already ending the war, signing the mineral deal. Huge deal. Janet Davenport, thank you so much for the super chat. Let's go. Said thank you for what you do. Thank you, Janet. Y'all show Janet some love in the chat. Man, I love it, guys. This literally just broke, guys, like 30 minutes ago. This is the Trump effect. And I want you to see this too because, again, the numbers don't lie and they're adding up. Even Jake Tapper had to admit that that the Europeans were buying oil from Russia and then giving money to Ukraine to help fight the war, literally funding both sides of the war. Listen to this.
As well. Absolutely. I mean, one of the reasons why we're seeing this is Americans who say Russia is an enemy. You go back to 2023, it was 64%. And that CBS News YouGov poll, it was down to 34%. Now, there is a chunk that believes that Russia is an unfriendly nation, but the percentage who believe that they're either an ally or friendly, that's up to 34% as well, basically equal to the percentage who say that they're an enemy. So views on Russia have become, let's say, a little less isolated in terms of wanting Russia to be way out there on their own, thinking that they're an enemy. At this particular point, they're starting to see Russia a little bit more friendly, and I think that's part of the reason why Americans want to see a compromise at this particular hour.
It's Tuesday, 4 March in the year of our Lord 2025. Today is the president addresses a joint session of Congress. We normally call it a State of the Union, but traditionally right after the weeks after a president's inaugurated, it is called a joint sessions speech to the joint session that'll take place tonight. We'll have wall-to-wall coverage on that on this, the most all of important days. The reason is economic warfare kicked in last night, the stroke of midnight, 12 Eastern Standard Time. 25% tariffs on two of our three largest trading partners, that would be Mexico and Canada, and a 20% tariff on the Chinese Communist Party. It's historic. And the way to look at this, and also all these negotiations or phony negotiations in Europe, this is geostrategic on one hand of what President Trump's doing with the rapprochement to Russia, and geoeconomic on the other, as he redoes the business model of the United States of America to make sure that people that want to have access to this market, and that means access to you. The underpinning civic society of this country has made this country free and made the most prosperous nation on earth. They have to pay a premium.
Yes.
And the easiest way to avoid those tariffs is, guess what, or avoid that premium, is move your manufacturing here. You cannot separate out yesterday's announcement by Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, the largest and most important of all the advanced chip design and chip manufacturers in the world, announcing a $100 billion investment in the state of Arizona to offshore their manufacturing away from the Chinese Communist Party to the United States of America. You couple that with Apple's $500 billion announcement a week or so ago, announcing they were moving their manufacturing from China and even some from India to the United States.
Yeah.
They're following President Trump's game plan. What President Trump is saying is that, hey, if you move your manufacturing here and create and invest massive amount of capital equipment, and I think yesterday they said there's already been $1.7 trillion of investment commitments in the first 40 days. Now, some of that is from Masasan and SoftBank in the Gulf Emirates and Qatar and Saudi, and I'm not crazy about that money, but close to $1 trillion is from the Hondas and the Apples and the Taiwan Semiconductor, the greatest companies in the world, and going to bring high value-added, high-paying jobs. And also, it looks like virtually all of those are going into red states or MAGA. The world wants to be associated with MAGA. The world feels comfortable and safe putting its money in states that are controlled by MAGA. And so this is why President Trump not ratcheted up, last night, the economic war. Now, there's other ancillary things that he wants to do with this, fentanyl, destroy the cartels, all that. But hey, it's economic warfare.
Yes, it is.
And this is why he's shutting down the kinetic part of the Third World War in Ukraine. He's shutting down the kinetic part of the Third World War in Israel. He is shutting down the potential for a kinetic part of a Third World War in the Straits of Taiwan, the South China Sea, or an invasion of Taiwan, as he extracts right now the manufacturing of the advanced chips that would destroy the American and world economy. And simultaneously, he's going to economic war with the Chinese Communist Party, 20% tariffs. And the Chinese Communist Party, unlike Mexico and unlike the EU and unlike Canada, they didn't say, well, maybe there's a counter, we'll throw another tariff. They said, hey, we understand exactly what this is. It's economic warfare. Mm-hmm. And what the Chinese Communist Party say, we will fight you to the bitter end. I like an enemy that's straightforward and up in your grill. Okay, we're going to walk through the tariffs. We're going to walk through how the tariffs and the economic warfare tie to what's going on in Ukraine. President Trump called their bluff last night. No more arms, no more money for Ukraine. Hey, Europe, you talk a big game. You talk 800 billion here, all this. You haven't put up any money. You've sent no troops. You talk a big game. Put up or shut up. Because peace is going to come to Ukraine, and Donald John Trump is going to ensure that.
Guys, y'all hear that? So yesterday, Trump announces, hey, no more money for Ukraine. We're cutting it all out. We're just going to, step aside and see what happens. And before you know it, this morning, a few minutes ago, Zelensky's ready to sign the deal. Trump's about to give a huge speech tonight, and guess what the Democrats are doing, guys? Because they just think they're so smart, and they think that everything that they've done thus far has worked, and they just want to continue to do the same old thing. I think Albert Einstein called that insanity. Watch this. This is now up to 22 people. Right now, there's 12 people. There's 12 separate videos on the screen right now. The Democrats are trying to go viral right now with this video. Watch this.
Immediately bring prices down starting on day one.
That's what you just heard. Day one of Donald Trump's presidency.
So every single Democrat is saying the exact same thing in the exact same way with the exact same words and is posting that. Literally just like It's so cringe. I don't even want to play it. I'm not going to because it's so cringe. But now it's up to like 22 lawmakers that are trying to say that when Trump said he was going to bring down prices, we told you he was going to lie. We told you that he wasn't going to be able to do it. He's literally not even 2 months into his presidency. But this is how they're trying to go viral. It's hilarious because, again, too, there's just so much gaslighting that a lot of people are saying, you know what? The Democrats, they're in decline right now. Listen to this.
Fox News alert, a bill that would have kept boys from playing in girls' sports just got struck down by the Democrats in the Senate. The bill needed 60 votes to get through the filibuster, but came up short, 51 to 45. 70% of the country thinks men should stay out of girls' sports, but I guess Democrats haven't learned a thing.
Nope.
This week, Democrats cooked up a scheme to win back voters, pretend to be like Trump. We found a Democrat memo that said the party needs to embrace patriotism, community, traditional American imagery, ditch identity politics, push back against radical leftism, get out of elite circles, interact with everyday Americans at tailgates, restaurants, churches, and then own up to all your mistakes. They had to hire a think tank to come up with that. We've told you that for free for 6 years. But Democrats can't do anything naturally. They're paying consultants to help them.
Guys, just want to say thank you so much for your support. If you don't mind clicking the thumbs up like button, thank you so much.
Go viral like Trump. And Democratic leadership invited content creators, including former RuPaul's Drag Race contestants, to gaggle with lawmakers alongside members of the press. Democrats say they're trying to reach everyday Americans, but then recruit drag queens and feminists to coach them on how to be normal. People watch and share videos because they're interesting or they're funny. The only reason we watch Democrat content is kind of to laugh at them.
I heard the Doge people are actually sleeping in the buildings where they're firing people. And so I thought maybe I could sleep there too. Hey. Hello. I was wondering if I could sleep here tonight. Oh, no? No, you cannot. I'm a member of Congress.
God, I've been listening to a lot recently called Lift Every Voice and Sang. They lifted every voice and sang till earth and heaven rang.
Donald Trump, Mike Johnson, and the extreme MAGA Republicans are claiming that Democrats are sending paid protesters into their town hall meetings. What's wrong with y'all? We don't need paid protesters, bro.
Yeah,
I'm sorry for even playing that. That was so boring. Then Democrats tried to dunk on Elon by putting out bullet points of what they did last month, but nobody was impressed. Their little gag flopped. The DNC marketing chief had to respond, quote, "The internet thinks we're morons." And the internet's right. Drop the gimmicks and just find a leader.
Yep.
The Democrats need to find their Trump. Not the authoritarian part, but the part where a politician bonds with everyday Americans because he talks like them. And the good news for Democrats is they have that guy. And his name is John Fetterman. Voters aren't really savvy about the issues, but they do have made it clear what is important to them. Authenticity, balls, and charisma. Trump has that package, and so does Fetterman.
Fetterman's grown on me, but he's no Trump. They'll have to keep looking. Tampon Tim was asked about getting back in the fight. Listen.
Look, I never had an ambition to be president or vice president. I was honored to be asked. If I feel like I can serve, I will. And if nationally that's what it looks like, if I think I could offer something, or if there's a piece there that would do it, I would certainly consider that. If it would be that I have the skill set, I'll do it.
If not Tampon Tim, what about Gavin Newsom? He just issued an executive order demanding workers return to the office. A bold stroke. Or how about Kamala? Just stuffing her face with Doritos. Nancy Pelosi has some advice for her party.
Man, look at them eyebrows.
She says, forget tearing up speeches. Go in for the kill shot. You got a mountain of rocks, Pelosi said, metaphorically referring to all the potential issues in an election. What are the 3 or 4? You're going to go right for the jugular. Then Pelosi swung her hand to the reporter's neck just to drive home the point. But the party can't go for Trump's jugular because they're still at each other's.
The Democratic parties, Joe Biden never should have been there in the first place.
Ooh.
Right? Number one, he shouldn't have run for president. I completely got so angry at Joe Biden, the man, when I read the transcript of the Hunter Biden trial. And when I realized that not one, not two, but 3 Biden children, and I count Bo's widow, were all dealing with drug problems in 2018. And Joe Biden said, now's a perfect time to run for president.
Democrats can't even handle an interview with NPR.
To what extent is immigration as an issue part of your problem with working class voters?
I mean, I guess my question would be what does the word problem mean?
People voting for the other side and not for you. Some Republican, or many perhaps, will be watching this, listening to this, and thinking, wait a minute, actually, you're the ones who are prosecuting us. You are the guys who are weaponizing the Justice Department. How would you respond to somebody who may be thinking that?
In what way? In what way? Is the very...
Guys, let me tell you this, because it's so hard to watch some of this stuff, but I want to show you what is actually happening behind the scenes. Because again, too, everybody's looking at all what the Democrats have done, and they're saying, yeah, y'all don't get it. You are lost. Y'all don't have a leader. Your message is gone. Nobody wants to follow you anymore because you've done too much stupid stuff that is now out there in the open thanks to X, thanks to YouTubers, thanks to people willing to spread the message. And now you don't have a message. Thank you so much, Lay Lewis, for the super chat. Let's go. Y'all show Lay Lewis some love in the chat. He said, just like kids, there has to be consequences for actions, period. Let me tell you this. What AOC just said was about as dumb as you can get. They say you got a problem. Well, what is a problem? They say that you don't get this. Well, what do you mean? Well, how did we weaponize it? Like, she can't answer it, so she answers it with the question. Thank you so much, Sherry Garcia, for the super chat. Said AI is the Democrats' only constituents. Yeah, the fake people. Y'all show Sherry and Lay some love in the chat. So Donald Trump came out again, too, because, again, what is it? It's go, go, go. Non-stop. 100%. Bullet speed train is moving as fast as possible because the way he moves like this, the Democrats cannot fight him. He said all federal funding will stop for any college, school, or university that allows illegal protest. Agitators will be imprisoned or permanently sent back to their country from which they came. American students will be permanently expelled or, depending on the crime, arrested. No mask. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Because remember, whenever they were taking over the colleges a couple years back, I think it was Columbia, destroying all them, anti-Semitism, all that stuff. Yeah, that's over. And what AOC was saying, what do you mean? What do you mean that we weaponized the justice system? Well, let me show you the receipts right here.
I was just going to make a point earlier. One of our Democrat colleagues talked about Kash Patel running the ATF. What I will say is this. When the ATF was run by someone else, I know some of the crazy things that happened. Any of you ever heard of Brian Malinowski? What happened to Mr. Malinowski? They said that he had somehow was accused of selling 6 firearms that he wasn't supposed to sell. Instead of going, and they had a search warrant, instead of going there to Brian Malinowski while he worked, highest paid municipal employee in Little Rock, Arkansas, worked at the Bill and Hillary Clinton Airport. Instead of going to the airport and talking to him, going to his house, and then doing the search warrant, they decided they were going to do a pre-dawn raid. And they were all set to do it on one particular Friday, and then they found out he wasn't home. So they called it off, and they said, we're going to wait till the next Friday when he is home and go at, again, pre-dawn raid. 10 cars pull up, ATF agents and local police. They go up. The first thing you see from the doorbell cam is them putting the tape on the doorbell camera. And then 53 seconds later, Brian Malinowski is shot in the head because he does what any normal person would do. It's why what Mr. Kiley brought up about the crazy law they're proposing in California. He was defending himself. He thought he was getting robbed. Defended himself, gets shot in the head, and dies several hours later. That's the ATF before. So you can criticize Kash Patel. That's ridiculous. Thank goodness he is running the ATF. We don't have the same people who ran it when that happened to Mr. Mountain. Made no sense. 53 seconds. Why not just execute the search warrant like you should? Why not talk to him? Why not pick him up at the airport, Mr. Malinowski, we're going to your house. Call your wife, let him know where we're coming. We'll go there, we'll execute the search warrant. No, they couldn't do it that way. So I think the good Lord, Kash Patel is running the FBI and, frankly, interim director of the ATF. I don't know if you guys want to, Ms. Miller, you can say something, or Mr. McDermott, I'll let you guys say something if you want, but I thought.
Amen.
Amen. God bless you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Guys, let me tell you this. We've seen it. People have lived it. United States, thank God, is getting some common sense, but every single poll that is out there is showing that people are siding with common sense. A lot of people are wondering what happened. And what I love too is that they are doing so many interviews. There is so much transparency with our government now that the left cannot deny it because they're coming out and they're saying everything. I love what Trump is doing. I love what Vance is doing. Jim Jordan, Pam Bondi, everybody. I want to say thank you so much, guys. If you don't mind clicking that thumbs up like button, really appreciate your help. Thank you for your support. Check this out.
Your perspective. Yeah, great TV. As the president said. Yeah, well, you know, it's funny. So we have a 45-minute press conference, and the president normally does this. I mean, I've seen this now 3 or 4 times with foreign leaders where he likes to bring the media in, likes to have a conversation, but answer questions with the press. As you know, he's very open with reporters. And what I noticed is that for the first 25, 30 or so minutes, he tried to sort of bend over backwards to be gracious and kind to Zelensky, even when Zelensky was kind of needling him, even when Zelensky was saying things that I thought were untrue. The president just tried to be diplomatic, right? I think that's his natural instinct in that situation. And then when it really went off the rails, of course, is when I asked, or you had a Polish journalist who asked a question, the president answered it, and then I answered it. And then something about my answer just really set Zelensky off. So then he came at me.
So you're blaming yourself.
then I went back at him. Right. And what I tried to do originally was actually try to diffuse the situation a little bit. Because I'm like, you know, we're having this meeting. Obviously, there are 100 television cameras here. Let's try to have this conversation in private. And then the president, as we kept on going back and forth, I tried again to say, well, maybe we should have this conversation in private. And the president was like, nope, actually, I don't want to have it in private anymore. I want to have this actual conversation in public for the American people to see. And I do think that there was just a certain sense of, there was a lack of respect. There was a certain sense of entitlement. And most importantly, look, we can look past all of that stuff, but the president has set a very clear goal for his administration. He wants the killing to stop. And I think that it's very important that President Zelensky and, of course, President Putin, too, they've both got to come to the negotiating table, and that's ultimately where things broke apart. I really don't care what President Zelensky says about me or anybody else, but he showed a clear unwillingness to engage in the peace process that President Trump has said is the policy of the American people and of their president. That's the real breakdown, is I think Zelensky wasn't yet there, and I think, frankly, now still isn't there, but I think he'll get there eventually. He has to.
My understanding is he tried to get back in, or tried to stay a number of times, and then made numerous calls to come back. Is that true?
I don't know about numerous calls, but they certainly made at least one request to come back in and continue the conversation. The president was like, look, first of all, they were disrespectful, and second of all, what are we even going to talk about? They've shown a clear unwillingness to discuss the peaceful settlement that President Trump is trying to bring to the situation. I think a lot of Americans are sort of, you know, it's useful to step back and ask ourselves, what is the actual plan here? You can't just fund the war forever. The American people won't stand for it. And by the way, Sean, if you look at European opinion polls, the Europeans aren't going to stand forever for it either. We need to bring this thing to a peaceful settlement. The president was trying to do that. He'll continue to try to do that, but you've got to have two to tango. You've got to have a negotiating partner in the Ukrainians who recognize that, you know, of course they have their views, and of course they're not always going to agree with us, but they've got to participate in the conversation. They weren't willing to do that on Friday, so the president said send him home.
He said today that the war he expects will go on a very long time. I don't know where he's going to get the money to fund that war. I have my doubts that Europe will fund the war to the level that Biden and Harris were funding it. And then the issue now has come up whether or not this administration will continue to offer money and arms for this war to continue. Because without America, I would argue the president was right in saying they have no cards.
Yeah, well, Sean, I think our European friends, frankly, are being really, really they're doing a disservice to the Ukrainians because their own populations are saying, we're not going to fund this war indefinitely. The American people are saying, we don't want to fund the war indefinitely. So the only thing that is in the best interest of America, of Russia, of Ukraine, and of Europe is to bring this thing to a close. What happened, Sean, is you have Zelensky. He goes to Europe, and a lot of our European friends puff him up. They say, you know, you're a freedom fighter. You need to keep fighting forever. Well, fighting forever with what? With whose money, with whose ammunition, and with whose lives? The president is actually taking a much more realistic perspective and saying, this can't go on forever. We can't fund this thing forever. The Ukrainians can't fight forever. So let's bring this thing to a peaceful settlement.
When I interviewed Zelensky, he wouldn't give me direct answers. I asked him about the mineral deal to pay the U.S. back. To me, there's three phases in this. And my understanding was Friday was supposed to be relatively ceremonial.
It was.
And in that it was supposed to be we signed the mineral deal. That's part one. Part two would be a ceasefire. Part three would be the hardest part, the negotiated settlement with Putin, who, correct me if I'm wrong, said he's willing to talk peace with Trump.
Yeah, he said he's willing to talk peace, and of course we trust but verify. We want to have the conversation. We don't assume that everything that anybody tells us is true. That's why we want to engage in this conversation. But you're exactly right, Sean. When the Ukrainians came to Washington on Friday, it was supposed to be ceremonial. You know, there had been some public back and forth, some disagreements, some words spoken in public, and the president was like, let's have this moment. We give some credit to the brave Ukrainian fighters, and of course it's a very brave army that they have there in Ukraine. Let's sign this minerals deal, which importantly does two things. It allows the American people to get some of their money back, but it also shows the Ukrainian people that America has a long-term investment in their sovereignty. You do those things, we'll sign this thing, we'll have a rah-rah moment, and then we'll get to the tough talk of negotiating peace. We couldn't even get the Ukrainians to a point where they could talk about the peaceful settlement. And look, in some ways, Sean, I get it. I get the frustration, I get the rage. It's their country, of course, it's not our country, but you've got to accept, cooler heads have got to prevail. Yep. This thing cannot go on forever. This is the important point. I'd say this to our, of course, most importantly, the Americans who are watching, but people all over the world. When you talk to leaders in private, whether they're Ukrainian or European, when you talk to people in private, they will tell you this cannot go on forever. There aren't enough Ukrainian lives, there isn't enough American money, and there isn't enough ammunition to fund this thing indefinitely. The only realistic pathway to bringing this thing to a settlement is President Trump's pathway. We encourage both President Zelensky and President Putin to follow that path.
Well, I mean, hundreds of...
And guys, let me tell you this. You don't think that Trump's not a deal maker? You don't think that Trump's not strategically just playing chess while everybody is playing checkers, guys? We just got this breaking news literally minutes ago. This is so amazing, everybody. So you remember whenever Trump said, yeah, we're going to take over the Gaza Strip. We're going to build it into some beautiful hotels. It's going to be more beautiful than ever. We'll invest into it and we'll make it amazing. We'll make it great again. We'll make Gaza great again. Well, then everybody in the world said, whoa, whoa, whoa. Because Trump said, hey, it's a mess right now. We'll go fix it up. Arab nations have rejected Trump's proposal to take Gaza and control it and have instead unveiled a $53 billion plan to rebuild the Gaza Strip. The deal maker, guys, the art of the deal. Threaten them with, hey, we'll put our own money where our mouth is at. We'll make things happen. And you force them to do what? Spend their own money. This is how you get out of $36 trillion of debt, because you stop paying for everything. Is this not amazing? Is this not so wonderful that we're finally getting other people to be held accountable for what they want to do? They keep saying, hey, we want to be a part of this, or United States pay for this. And Trump said, you know what? I've got a way to do it, and it's going to work. And this is what I love, guys. It is 100% accountability. And I want to say, guys, thank you so much for all your support, guys. We're just hopefully giving you the best show that we can give you. If you don't mind clicking the thumbs up like button, it really does help out so much with growing the channel. The House Republicans had their meeting today, guys. And again, too, we're starting to get more details on what's going to be happening next with Trump's agenda. They got big bills to pass, tax cuts, no tax on Social Security, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and all this is about to come to fruition. Check this out.
riding the wave of the popularity of President Trump's policies, and he is doing some things that everybody in the country is excited about. Once all this is signed into law, the American people are going to begin to feel real relief at the pump, in their bank account, and in safer communities. This set of policies is what the president ran on, and all of us ran on, and we'll be checking the boxes along the way. The polling continues to show the American people are with us on the issues. In Congress, we have the highest approval rating in 4 years. Among Republicans in our party, we have the highest approval rating in over 20 years. You have to go back to August of 2005 to see similar numbers. And I think the reason for that is because we're restoring common sense. And that is the theme that the president keeps reiterating over and over. We're restoring what makes sense to the people. And this contrast between our policies and our ideas and this common sense agenda is very different than our Democrat colleagues. They are defending wasteful government spending right now. They're opposing tax cuts for working families. They're supporting open borders in sanctuary cities, you heard about this morning. And they're doing all that above the well-being of the American people. And the American people are taking note. And while House Democrats struggle to find a message that hasn't already been rejected by the American people, House Republicans are going to continue to deliver for the country. Speaking of delivering for the American people, President Trump makes his triumphant return, of course, tonight, as was mentioned. It's 5 years after his last State of the Union address. This is a joint address to Congress, not a State of the Union, because a State of the Union is typically delivered on or around the sort of the 1 year anniversary, first year in office. But this president is working so quickly, I invited him to come early in the process to give this joint address because there's so much to report to the people, and we're delighted he's going to be there. If he just stood at the speaker's rostrum and read off all his list of accomplishments since January 20th, we'd be there all night. I don't expect it will go that long. He's going to give a truncated version of this. But there really is so much to celebrate. The president has already notched impressive lists of wins in so many categories. There's a few. Securing the border so well that border crossings have hit an historic low. Deporting criminal illegal aliens. Taking on the cartels directly. Standing up to terrorists. Bringing hostages back home. Working to secure peace around the globe. Ending the weaponization of government, bringing investments and jobs back to the U.S., unleashing American energy, keeping men out of women's sports that the Democrats don't seem to agree with us on, and cutting waste, fraud, and abuse. I mean, all this has been happening in just 43 days. It's hard to believe. He's just been in office 43 days, and that's just one sample list of what's been accomplished. It is, as our whip said, promises made, promises kept, and we're going to keep that going, and he's just getting started. So we look forward to hearing more about his vision for the future tonight, and we will continue to work with him hand in hand to deliver and implement the America First agenda and renew the American dream, which is what will be the subject of his discussion tonight. So with that, I'll take a few questions, and we'll go. Yes?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Democrats have been seizing on footage of protesters at Republican town halls, and now they're pushing back on, I guess, reporting that there's been discretion that Republicans should hold less town halls. I mean, do you think that that's what your members should be doing? Do you think that they should be?
Well, look, we've been encouraging our members to communicate directly with their constituents, and they're anxious to do that. There's lots of different ways and forums to do it. You could do it in telephone town halls. You can have small subgroups of people from different industries and segments of the community. We find that to be very, very productive, and more productive than if you just go to an open forum right now. Why? Because we've seen this movie before. George Soros-funded groups and others literally pay protesters. And, I saw my friend Hakeem Jeffries decrying that I've said that, but we know that that is a fact. Democrat activists who don't live in the district very often will show up for these town hall events, and they'll go in an hour early and they'll fill all the seats. And so the constituents and the people from the community that are actually represented don't even get a seat. Now, I'm not saying everyone in these, all the Democrats in these town halls that you've seen on television were not from the local area, but look, there are people who do this as a profession. They're professional protesters. So why would we give them a forum to do that right now? The best thing that our members can do is communicate directly, frequently, consistently with their constituents, and there are other avenues to do it than just going in to try to give the other side sound bites. I mean, they're doing this for the cameras, we all know it, and I think it's wise not to play into it right now. So that's my position. Yes?
Would you have preferred, or should Secretary Rubio have
gone through the Congress on the $3 billion arms sales announced to Israel over the weekend? And what do you hope to hear from President Trump tonight on what's next for Gaza?
Well, I think we'll have some important information on that tonight. From my perspective, what is happening in the Secretary of State, Department of Defense, and of course all through the White House is well within the president's authority. They have discretion on some of these funds and how to use them. There's been consternation about the announcement that they would pause military aid to Ukraine. And I had a few people ask me this morning, well, don't you think that's a violation of separation of powers or something? It's not. The president has authority to do that, to act as the commander-in-chief, to use the strategy that he and his team believe is best fit for that. It's not changing or redirecting something that Congress did, unlike the Biden administration. You remember with Israel, he was basically redirecting whole categories of, for example, armaments and bombs that Congress had duly enacted, had voted to send to Israel. They were trying to redirect and hold it in perpetuity. This is different. A temporary pause, I think, is a strategic move by the commander-in-chief, and we support that. And so we'll see. I think there'll be more information about it tonight and in the days ahead, and we'll see how it develops.
Mr. Speaker, if you're moving ahead with a clean CR at current spending levels, does that mean that Congress will be funding programs that may have been eliminated or frozen? And if so, how do you intend to address that?
Yeah, so a clean CR allows us to avoid a government shutdown, which isn't good for anyone, while the DOGE effort continues, and it's really critical work, finding fraud, waste, and abuse throughout the government. So what the DOGE effort will do is prepare recommendations for FY26. We have to get FY25 done. We will not be funding fraud, waste, and abuse that's already been discovered. As soon as that is qualified and quantified, okay, it will be codified in that sequence. And what that means is we have a deadline of March 14. We don't have time to calculate all the things in major categories to work in an appropriations process in that amount of time. So what will happen is in a clean CR requested and supported by the president and all of us, we will fund the government responsibly. And at OMB, the Office of Management and Budget, and in the White House, they will not direct funds to these categories of things that have been shown to be abusive. What will happen on the back end, is the way the procedure works, is that we'll be able to go back later and do rescissions and handle it in other ways. The big savings that DOGE is finding, and I'm very excited about this. I've been meeting with Elon Musk about it regularly. We talk about it often. That will be a part of FY26. We're going to get back to regular order, restore the process. We'll get a budget from the White House that reflects all of those savings, because there'll be time to calculate it and do that. And then we will begin the appropriations process for FY26. I think it's going to be a very exciting development, because we're going to do it differently than it's been done in years. We'll have whole categories, big savings, I believe, that will change the equation. And it's going to be a great thing for the American people.
Last question, guys. And again, too, what is it always about, guys? The American people. I've got to show you this. So Canada doesn't allow American banks to do business in Canada. Don't even allow it. But their banks, but the Canada banks are allowed in the United States. Trump said, "Oh, that seems fair to me, doesn't it?" Doesn't. It's example after example after example that we keep seeing that every other country takes advantage of the United States, and then whenever the United States pushes back, then everybody says, "Oh, they shouldn't be doing that. That's not right." Trump also said, "Please explain to Governor Trudeau of Canada that when he puts a retaliatory tariff on the U.S., our reciprocal tariff will immediately increase by the like amount." Who's got the bigger stick? We'll see. Because I'll tell you this, Trump is not backing down. We're going to make things fair, and we're going to make sure that however we're treated, we're going to treat other people. And again, too, guys, it's total transparency. We're getting to see, we have a front row seat to everything that has happened, including, and I'm hoping that this gets even deeper, guys, with these Epstein files, the JFK files, the MLK, all this stuff, because we still don't know a single dang thing, even about the Butler incident with the attempted assassination on Donald Trump. Have you heard anything about that kid? His house was scrubbed clean. no social media accounts, nothing online, yet he had enough money for 5 cell phones, had enough money for all these arms, created explosives, all this stuff, yet we don't know anything. To me, that's where the cover-up is at. But again, too, we got to bring some good news about, we do know that there is a truckload of Epstein files that's been transmitted to the FBI, and they're currently reviewing them now. Check this out.
How many weeks in?
Just a few.
Just a few. Let me start with the Epstein case, because there was an expectation that this was going to be bigger. You had the same expectation.
We all did. And the FBI handed over a couple hundred pages of documents. But, you know, Sean, I gave them a deadline of Friday at 8 a.m. to get us everything. And a source had told me where the documents were being kept, Southern District of New York, shock. So we got them all by, hopefully all of them, Friday at 8 a.m., thousands of pages of documents. I have the FBI going through them, and Cash is also, now that we have Cash here, it's a game changer, of course, and Cash is going to, Director Patel, is going to get us a detailed report as to why the FBI withheld all of those documents.
Okay, I want to be clear, because I think people got frustrated because they were expecting more. You were expecting more, and you didn't find out less than 24 hours before the release. You got a whistleblower that confirmed that there were way more documents that they were supposed to turn over, and then you found out just before that.
Well, sure, and you're looking at these documents going, these aren't all the Epstein files. You know, there were flight logs, there were names and victims' names, and we're going, where's the rest of the stuff? And that's what the FBI had turned over to us. And so a source said, whoa, all this evidence is sitting in the Southern District of New York.
Yep.
So based on that, I gave them the deadline, Friday at 8, a truckload of evidence arrived. It's now in the possession of the FBI. Cash is going to get me, and himself really, a detailed report as to why all these documents and evidence had been withheld. And, you know, we're going to go through it as fast as we can, but go through it very cautiously to protect all the victims of Epstein, because there are a lot of victims.
Well, you had identified in phase one over 254. Okay. Now, is that the only thing that would be redacted? Will everything else be made public that you get in your possession?
Yeah, the FBI hasn't had, obviously, they haven't looked at the thousands of pages of documents that they've just received Friday.
Yeah.
But Cash has a team going through them, and it's always about protecting the victim. But you know what? We believe in transparency, and America has the right to know. The Biden administration sat on these documents. No one did anything with them. And why were they sitting in the Southern District of New York? I want a full report on that. You know, sadly, these people don't believe in transparency, but I think more, unfortunately, I think a lot of them don't believe in honesty. And it's a new day, it's a new administration, and everything's going to come out to the public. The public has a right to know. Americans have a right to know.
And that goes the same with the JFK files,
JFK,
RFK files,
Martin
MLK.
Luther King. Yep, absolutely.
What are the things that, and maybe some people don't understand the need to redact. In the case of a victim, that should be pretty obvious to people. What are the other things that maybe you would have to redact?
Well,
national security?
No, of course, national security, some grand jury information, which is always going to be confidential, but we'll see. Let's look through them as fast as we can, get it out to the American people, because the American people have a right to know, not only on that, but on Kennedy, on Martin Luther King, on all of these cases that the Biden administration has just sat on for all these years. So yeah, it's really, it's not sad, it's infuriating that these people thought that they could sit on this information, but they can't. It's a new day, and we believe in transparency, and it's going to come out. And when we redact things, Sean, what we're going to do is not just pull pages out like they used to do. If something's redacted, you will know the line, and you will know why it's redacted, like a victim's name, identifying information of a victim.
Let's talk a little bit about the DOJ prior to your arrival. I believe it was weaponized. How do we prevent that from ever happening again?
Amen.
I believe that once the FBI was the world's premier law enforcement agency, and that was weaponized and politicized. I believe the same with our intel community. How do we restore these institutions to their former greatness?
Well, first and foremost, we got rid of the Jack Smith team. Gone. Those people are gone. We're still trying to find out. There are a lot of people in the FBI and also in the Department of Justice who despise Donald Trump, despise us, don't want to be there. We will find them because you have to believe in transparency. You have to believe in honesty. You have to do the right thing. And right now, we're going to root them out. We will find them, and they will no longer be employed. But again, we're starting at every level of the Justice Department, Sean, and getting rid of the worst of the worst. But there are a lot more people that shouldn't be there, but there are a lot of good people who are out there now risking their lives every day making these cases. You know, today we made a huge case involving a Guatemalan, an illegal from Guatemala, one of the largest human trafficking rings in the country. 20,000 people being smuggled into this country from Guatemala.
Wow.
That arrest was made in California. Last week, an illegal was arrested in New York for ISIS, funding ISIS. It's constant. We are going to get out there. We're going to arrest the bad people, take them off the streets, and restore the Justice Department to what it was made to do, fight violent crime.
Were you or are you up to this point? I know it's very early in your tenure.
A few weeks.
Are you at all shocked at how things were running before you got there?
Shocked. Yeah.
Shocked.
Never thought. Cash and I, Patel, talk about this all the time. You know, we knew it was bad. We never knew how bad.
Wow.
And especially work on the criminal side and on the people who are in there. Well, you've heard the story, of course. I went up, I was visiting the floors. I walk up to the 7th floor of the National Security, and I couldn't get in there because it's a skiff. Well, that's how it was secure.
Yeah.
But my detail managed to get me in there. They still had a picture of Joe Biden on the wall and Kamala Harris. That's how bad it was. So I personally took those off the wall. But that's the tip of the iceberg.
What about when you talk about people in the DOJ that have an awful lot of power, and maybe what they did to Donald Trump is unprecedented. Evaluation of Mar-a-Lago, the double standard with the rate of Mar-a-Lago, the FISA abuse, Russia lie, a dirty misinformation dossier signed 3 times by a former FBI head, in that case, James Comey. Are these all on the table to get to the bottom of over time?
Everything's on the table, Sean. We're going to look at everything. And as I said, the Jack Smith team, gone. That was low-hanging fruit, really.
Right.
Get rid of them. Get rid of the people that raided the president's home
We
at
look
Mar-a-Lago.
into what they did?
Everything's being looked into. Everything. And right now, we are hiring great lawyers, great people around us who we can trust. Right now, the numbers are very small. But now that we have cash in, it's made it a lot easier at the FBI. But he's dealing with what we're dealing. You know, the great men and women of DEA, ATF, the U.S. Marshals. We're all working together to fight violent crime. And it's a shame that a few people have given them such a bad name, as well as the Department of Justice.
It sounds daunting. It sounds like a massive list. It doesn't sound like you're going to be sleeping a lot in the next 4 years.
None of us will, but it's worth it. It's worth it to fight for the American people and to keep America safe.
Amen.
Guys, let me tell you this. Imagine, this is what Pam Bondi and Kash Patel are doing right now. Imagine going into office in a position where you have to walk in and say, all right, we know that y'all been doing things illegally and weaponizing the government, so I need you to hand me over things about you that is going to help me to put you in jail. That's literally what they're doing right now, guys. So when you think about it, you got to give them some grace. They're going to work through the process. There are a ton of good people in the FBI and the CIA, but remember, how do you weed them out? How do you weed out the bad from the good? It's going to be a process, and it's going to take time. And I feel like with Kash Patel and Pam Bondi, they're going to fulfill Trump's agenda, but sometimes things don't happen overnight. But you got to know that if the right people are in place, it's only a matter of time. Want to say thank you to everybody who's watching, to all of our subscribers. If you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. If you don't mind clicking the thumbs up like button, thank you so much for your support. And don't forget our other channel, TrueLife Breaking News. The link is in the description to go subscribe to that channel, guys. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you to everybody that is a member of the channel. Want to give some love to Gene Kopedge, who just gave a super chat, said, how much more information is hidden in these blue cities. Ooh, that's a good one. These sanctuary cities are the enemy of the American people. Let me tell you this, guys. Anybody in any town that puts non-citizens above American citizens, what do you expect? Is that not, in a sense, you're literally stepping over Americans to help out illegals? And I'm not saying that we shouldn't help anybody else out, but dang it, we're $36 trillion in debt. We have homeless veterans. We have people with mental issues and drug issues, and shouldn't we be using our money to help them out? Thank you so much, Gene, for the super chat. I want to give some love to Random Car, Janet Davenport, Leigh Lewis, Sherry Garcia. Y'all show them some love in the chat. Thank you to everybody, guys, for all your participation in the chat. We had a huge speech tonight with Trump in his addressing the Congress. There's supposed to be some shenanigans going on by the Democrats. They're already trying to go viral with this one video where everybody's saying the same thing. They're all repeating it in the same fashion. And I feel like something's going to happen tonight, guys. We'll see. But you know that we're going to be here for it. Appreciate you all. Love you all. And we'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.